This podcast was recorded on the 11th of April, 2025. Owing to the evolving nature of this topic, the contents discussed may have developed further since.
Welcome to ESG and the City, your go-to podcast for all things ESG and sustainable finance. We're here to keep you informed and inspired as you navigate the evolving world of ESG and financial services, all in under 10 minutes.
I'm Maitri, joined today by Arwin, and we are unpacking one of the most pressing developments in global finance this month, a series of protectionist trade measures announced by President Donald Trump, which have triggered the worst market crashes since 1929.
These liberation tariffs have already disrupted global trade flows, with far-reaching implications for the climate agenda and sustainable investing. But first, let's talk about where ESG stands under this new administration.
So, Arwin, how has Trump 2.0 reshaped the ESG landscape so far?
We've seen a decisive pivot. America First is back with a vengeance, with ESG squarely in the crosshairs. The new Trump administration has signaled a hard reversal on federal ESG mandates, including plans to exit the Paris Agreement and halt funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, which had earmarked $369 billion for clean tech under the Biden administration's climate agenda.
So this shift is already affecting market sentiment. Many financial institutions that once actively championed ESG integration are actively now reconsidering their position, largely due to concerns over political exposure. Some are withdrawing from global net zero alliances or downplaying sustainability disclosures in their investor communications.
Against this backdrop, it is worth re-examining Trump's protectionist agenda. He seeks to reshore manufacturing, strengthen domestic supply chains, and reduce dependencies on foreign producers, particularly in strategic sectors. Against this backdrop, it is worth re-examining Trump's protectionist agenda. He seeks to reshore manufacturing, strengthen domestic supply chains, and reduce dependency on foreign producers, particularly in strategic sectors. But what are the implications for the climate transition?
The impacts are significant. For one, the 25% tariff on lithium batteries from China will directly impact U.S. imports of Chinese clean tech goods, which reached $1.9 billion as of December 2024. This tariff targets key components in the clean technology supply chain, where China currently leads. In retaliation, China has placed export restrictions on rare earth minerals such as lithium, cobalt, and gallium, which are critical for renewable technology systems and electric vehicles. It is important to note that China controls about 60% of global critical minerals production and 85% of global processing capacity. This will therefore not only weaken American automakers' capacity to transition to electric vehicles and the wider clean tech industry, but will significantly disrupt global supply chain activities.
While this may initially appear to challenge the clean energy agenda, it does present an opportunity to rethink supply chain resilience. From a due diligence perspective, the supply chains in China are opaque at best, and human rights allegations are prevalent. Governments and companies may attempt to shift procurement strategies towards more transparent jurisdictions.
So perhaps we may see companies shifting their focus to building and improving their domestic supply chains, which would impact the way investors choose to engage with their portfolio companies.
Looking globally, the EU's proposal to have a zero-for-zero trade on cars and industrial goods imported from the US has been swiftly rejected by the Trump administration, which remains focused on closing its trade deficit gap of $350 billion with the bloc and promoting American gas. Since the phasing out of Russian energy imports, the EU has already become a major consumer of US liquefied natural gas. But with the rising import costs, the bloc is now reassessing some of its climate commitments, including loosening targets for energy storage and improved cost efficiency. We can expect to see this trend of prioritizing cost-cutting over emissions reduction across other impacted jurisdictions as well, as an act to maintain competitiveness as a response to the tariff burdens.
So, Arwin, it seems like this increase in trade protectionism is not going to bode well for climate action. Are we seeing a silver lining?
Yeah. Jens Peers, CIO at Morova US, noted recently that sustainable investment themes may do well relative to other sectors and themes due to their resilience. Notably, the market's initial reaction following the announcement saw the renewables and utility sector outperforming relative to others. So any tariff-related disruption might be positive, at least in the short term. Ironically, one additional short-term consequence of stagnant trade and degrowth may be a reduction in global emissions. With international trade flows slowing and supply chains under pressure, the resulting economic contraction could lead to lower emissions. However, it is important to note that this is not a sustainable or strategic path to decarbonization.
Agreed. So this decline is largely incidental and underscores the need for a long-term collaborative approach to emissions reduction that is both feasible and facilitates a just transition.
Well, I'm glad we're ending this episode on a somewhat hopeful note during this period of recalibration. Investors will need to reassess exposures to sectors vulnerable to supply chain disruption, while also identifying opportunities in domestic innovation, regional clean energy investments, and transition-aligned companies with strong ESG governance.
As we wrap up, one question remains top of the mind for investors and ESG professionals, and we'd like to present it here to our audience. How should portfolios be positioned in light of rising protectionism and climate policy uncertainty?
Thanks for listening to ESG and the City. If you found today's episode engaging, be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Got questions or suggestions? Connect with us on LinkedIn at Novatus Global or reach out to us at esg@novatus.global. We'd love to hear from you. Here's Arwin
And Maitri,
signing off for now.
Sustainably yours, Novatus Global. This podcast is a 2025 production by Novatus Global. Researched, written, and presented by Arwin Young and Maitri Lapalikar. Video and audio production by Thibault Lacombe.